I want to first start off this by kind of giving you a chance to introduce yourself to some of the people who are, very, very young in the esports scene, maybe just Fortnite fans, and don't really know the insane amount of things that you've already accomplished in the industry. You were the very first esports pro ever, which is quite a statement in the fact that, there's a YouTube video online that shows like earnings in esports over like up to a certain point in time. And for the first like 15 years, I think to like even like past 2010, it's just your name as like this big bar graph, and then everybody else is like a third of that. And then finally, once League of Legends started gearing up and stuff, people started catching up. But I'm hoping you could talk a little bit about like those early days of esports and what you learned and how the thing kind of got built up from there to what we see now with Fortnite World Cup and League of Legends World Championships. And I'd like to get your perspective on kind of how that's evolved and your part in it.
Yeah, I mean, if people know the game Quake, Quake was like one of the first like kind of competitive player versus player games. I mean, you could say fighting game communities have some kind of a fight in the matter of esports, like early days.
Yeah.
But Quake was kind of like the one you could win some money at. Obviously, you could win a Ferrari at it. One of my good friends, Dennis Thresh Fong, who won a Ferrari for playing Quake 1. So he was definitely paving the way in a lot of ways, really early in the kind of like the very elite level of Quake 1 players. Eventually, Quake 3 came out in 1999. I've already been playing Quake 1 for about 3 years, and I was undefeated in all the tournaments I played in. But Quake 3 was like a game where it seemed that, you had some of the best players from all around the world coming to a physical event. So you had the best Germans, the best Russians, you had the best Swedish players, you had the best Asian gamers, you had the best American gamers, and they all came to these type of tournaments. And that's kind of when I really took off. Basically, I ended up I saved about $500 in my bank account as a kid. My friend from Omaha, Nebraska, he's told me how good I was, and I really didn't even know I was that good. I really just loved playing the games, and it was a hobby. I wasn't making a living at it and so forth, so it wasn't anything to brag about besides bragging to my friends in high school. Eventually I saved up $500, went to my very first pro tournament, won $4,000 that weekend playing a game called Quake 3, and eventually I went home and slapped that check on the table, and I go, Dad, I won $4,000 playing a video game. What's this world coming to? And basically after that, I kept playing the game. 2 weeks after, I got invited to go to Sweden to represent USA and play against the top 12 players in the world. And obviously, I went there and I won 18 games straight, losing 0 against the top 12 guys in the world, and basically became the world champion at the age of 18 years old at the game Quake 3 Arena. After that, I started getting sponsored. I started traveling to all the tournaments around the world. I think I made over $100,000 a year playing in tournaments.
That's insane.
Basically just, kind of launched my career as a professional gamer, and eventually became kind of like a household name later on throughout my career.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you touched on a bunch of things there that are pretty like actually big deals for especially the new generation of kids that are playing right now and competing in games like Fortnite. So for one, there was no way for you to know just playing online, sitting in your house, how good you actually were. You actually had to go to a tournament and actually save up your money, either save up lunch money or get a part-time job just so you could go. And there was nobody who had done this before you. So you couldn't even show your parents like, hey, look at this guy so-and-so who, now is $100,000 because he's played video games. That didn't exist. So you really had to, it must have taken an incredible amount of belief in yourself, and then also just like a determination to do this when nobody else had done it. There was no clear path on how to do it. How much did you kind of have to figure things out as you went, and how much did it take you by surprise as it was happening that you were making all this money and that all this stuff was happening to you? Was it kind of surreal?
Yeah, obviously saving up the money, as a kid, I played sports a lot, and I was always like an athlete. I felt like I didn't really get to play as much sports as I really wanted to. My body was hungry for competition. And so, as a kid, not to dig in the weeds too much, but I never really felt like I got my full shot at doing something and trying to be the best at it. So I was always kind of like the Renaissance man, like really good at a lot of things, but never the best at one thing. And so gaming and esports and Quake 3 was kind of like my moment. I actually moved out of my parents' house to pursue my career, so I'm not sure if I'm giving the best advice here. But I moved in with my dad, actually, so I wasn't too far offline. But my dad understood my competitive drive. He understood why I had to do it, and obviously saved up the $500, driving down there, basically, kind of, going all in to some extent, and trained for about 3 months, about 10 hours a day. And it was actually an ultimatum to myself. If I didn't win any significant money there, I was going to quit pro gaming, or quit the whole concept of trying to play video games for a living. I mean, like you said, it really wasn't a thing yet. I think Thresh has some fight in the battle of saying like he's the first pro gamer, obviously, because he won the Ferrari and he got a lot of sponsorships and so forth. But for me, it was more or less, I was making my full living from playing tournaments, like tournament winnings, and obviously I was able to make a living just from tournaments. And then eventually, obviously, I took some of the business side of it to win the sponsorships and kind of live that crazy lifestyle of competing and traveling the world. But yeah, I mean, I remember being in Sweden, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't, there's so many moments where you're just like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
So I remember I was going to school at the time, and I was telling my counselor about me going to play video games, and and he was actually very understanding of the situation, because I actually got about a $30,000 sponsorship to one company. I got another 30 grand from another company, and then I was making over 100 grand my first year as a professional gamer. So I was explaining to the to the college counselor or whatever deal is, like, my situation, and he was like, "Dude, it sounds like you should go do that and come back to school, because we will always be here." So I was explaining all the things I was doing, and he was like in shock, actually. And it's just kind of so crazy. I mean, no one really believed what I was doing back then. I mean, it was just so different.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, because there's still so many people today that if you talk to about esports are completely unaware of it, and still when the Fortnite World Cup happened and Booga won $3 million, like, he was everywhere. And the general population, like, obviously, guys like you and me who live in this sort of stuff, we're like, oh yeah, this is just a natural evolution. But for the majority of the world, they were like, a kid won $3 million playing a video game? What is going on? Like, it didn't make any sense to them still.
I loved it. Watching him win the $3 million, I mean, it brought back a lot of memories for myself when I was that young playing games. So obviously, I was winning $4 grand back when he was 60. When I was that young.
Yeah.
But going throughout my career, I was able to leverage my popularity, and where basically I was featured on MTV True Life. So MTV True Life did a documentary on me, and this is before reality TV was really a thing on television. But they caught my true. It was called "I'm a True Life. I'm a Gamer."
Okay.
And so basically, they followed me around for like 4 months, watching me play games. And if you guys ever want to, just load up on YouTube "Fatal1ty True Life. I'm a Gamer." You can watch the episode. It's definitely a flashback. But it re-aired for over 13 years. It was like one of the most viewed True Lives ever recorded, and basically just showed me, going through my grind of like training, practicing, and the whole 9 yards. But the coolest thing was I won, on the documentary. So the guys didn't know I'm gonna win. They just followed because like I'm a competitor and like I'm a Quake champion, right? But I'm playing a different game. I'm playing Unreal Tournament, so it's not even my game. But it was showing it showed basically my skill set, where I could show people like I can play more than one shooting game. So, and throughout my career, I was a world champion at 5 different FPS games. So that's kind of like my legacy, is like no one really ever did that. People always stayed to their one specific discipline. Yeah. And I was able to show people I can switch games and be the best in the world.
So you're kind of like the FPS version of like Sonic Fox. You know that guy now who plays all the fighting games, and he's like one of the top players. I think you were a better version of him because you actually were winning all these games. I think he's like, considered in the top 5 in a bunch of different fighting game titles right now. But there's definitely more variation. At least I might get in trouble for saying this because I'm not a big fighting game guy, but I think there's more variation from one FPS title to another in terms of all the different little mechanics. I mean, I guess fighting games do have a lot of like small nuanced differences as well, but it's definitely a very impressive legacy, and I think it's super important for the people who are fans of Fortnite today and people who like are big esports fans today that are younger to kind of be aware of this in the sense that like guys like you are what paved the way for how we got to where we are today with all of the games that we play now and all the big competitions and stuff like that. It was really people like you who took a chance back when, like I said, there was nobody doing this. There was no clear career path. Like there was Thresh for sure, but that was kind of when there's only one guy and he's won one tournament and they gave him a Ferrari and he got some sponsorships. And we've even got some footage here of that MTV True Life episode. It was so much younger.
that was the house I grew up as a teenager.
Wow.
I used to play hockey in that cul-de-sac right outside.
That's crazy.
That was me training for Arnold Tournament, 2003.
Okay.
Very long time ago, but they were on training, playing the game. There's my tiger on top of the monitor.
It's Man, that's
nostalgic looking at the thing. That was my old Ford Focus. I won from playing Alien vs Predator 2. So that was actually the second game I was world champion at. And then I moved on to Arnold Tournament as my third game. But it's pretty cool to win a car playing video games as well. So definitely.
Yeah. I bet. And what's interesting to me is that, despite it being such a long time ago in the, esports and technology world, even though it was, not that long ago, there's still so many similarities in terms of how you seem to have treated your training, your practicing. Like I remember you telling me once that you only ate you ate a very light lunch, or you ate like a turkey sandwich or something like that, and that was it because you didn't want to get heavy. Like you didn't want to feel heavy while you were practicing. You wanted to be sharp and focused.
Food coma. It's like I was always afraid of food coma. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this documentary is sick. Actually, if you a little bit earlier, you actually got a glimpse at Heaton when he was really young, and also Thorn. Thorn was one actually interviewed me, and everyone knows Thorn as the esports historian.
Yep.
So it's so funny. Some of Thorn's first interviews were with me back in the day. Which
big
is like
Thorn fan.
Most celebrated journalist out there right now.
Oh, 100%. That dude is, they're like, some people don't like him, but that guy is the man when it comes. I don't care what anybody says. That guy is the man when it comes to esports journalism. He knows his stuff.
Everyone has their edge, so you just have to understand that's his edge and that's his chip on his shoulder and so forth. But yeah, I understand.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really funny actually that we're on this show and talking about Fortnite and so forth. Actually, Fortnite was made by Epic, which was actually the game I won the world championship at for Unreal Tournament. It was made by the same company, Epic. So
I
knew Mark Rain and Cliff Belinsky back then, but Mark Rain is still with Epic. And
wow.
Yeah, it kind of shows you kind of full circle of Epic games. Back then, I was winning the world championship on MTV for True Life for a game Epic made, and now you have a kid winning $3 million, which another game Epic made, Fortnite. So it's really cool kind of to see the full circle.